Microplastics, minute particles less than 5 mm in size, are increasingly prevalent in our environment. From oceans to agricultural fields, they have infiltrated nearly every aspect of our ecosystem, with alarming implications for human health. Recent studies suggest that these particles, often found in our food and water, may contribute to a fourfold increase in heart disease risk. This article delves into the complex relationship between microplastic exposure and cardiovascular health. By understanding the pathways through which these particles enter our food supply, we can begin to address the potentially severe health risks associated with microplastic consumption. Make sure to stay until the end to find out all the best information, and remember, at Beyond Living, we provide the best information and actionable and functional guides for all facets of healthy living, vitality, and fitness. Also, check out the awesome products that are running exclusive, limited-time deals just for our viewers here at Beyond Living in the description and in the top pinned comments that we recommend for all our viewers for vitality, healthy living, and fitness. Like, comment, and subscribe as it greatly helps the channel. Microplastics are tiny fragments of plastic that measure less than 5 mm in size, about the width of a pencil eraser. They originate from a variety of sources, including the breakdown of larger plastic items, such as bottles and bags, and from the manufacturing of products like microbeads in cosmetics or synthetic fibers in clothing. As these materials degrade, they fragment into smaller pieces that eventually make their way into the environment. These particles are virtually indestructible and can persist in the environment for hundreds of years. Microplastics find their way into our oceans, rivers, and soil through common processes like improper waste disposal, industrial runoff, and atmospheric deposition. In aquatic environments, they are consumed by marine organisms, eventually climbing the food chain to our dinner plates. On land, they contaminate agricultural soil and may be absorbed by plants or ingested by animals, again becoming part of the human diet. Microplastics can also enter our bodies through inhalation, as tiny airborne particles are emitted from various industrial processes and everyday activities. Once in the body, microplastics can migrate to different tissues, where they may cause a range of health effects, including inflammation and cellular damage. Understanding how these particles spread is critical to assessing their potential risks and developing strategies to mitigate them. Microplastics find their way into our food through various pathways, each posing a unique risk to human health. One of the most significant sources of contamination is the ocean. Microplastics are abundant in marine environments, resulting from the decomposition of larger plastic waste and direct pollution from ships and industrial activities. Marine organisms, such as fish and shellfish, ingest these particles, which then accumulate in their tissues. As these organisms move through the food chain, so do the microplastics, ultimately reaching the seafood that lands on our plates. Another pathway involves agricultural practices. Microplastics can contaminate soil through the use of plastic mulch, sewage sludge, or irrigation with water containing microplastic particles. Plants grown in such environments may absorb microplastics, integrating them into their tissues. Livestock and other animals grazing on contaminated land can also ingest microplastics, further contributing to their presence in our food. Beyond natural sources, microplastics can also contaminate food during processing and packaging. Plastic containers and utensils can release microplastics into food and drinks, especially when exposed to heat or acidic substances. Bottled water, a common source of hydration, has been found to contain microplastic particles due to the breakdown of plastic bottles and caps. Understanding these pathways is crucial for developing strategies to minimize microplastic contamination in our food supply. By recognizing the routes through which microplastics enter our diet, we can take steps to reduce our exposure and mitigate the potential health risks associated with their consumption. Microplastics in our food and environment can have significant health implications. Once inside the body, these tiny particles can cause inflammation and cellular damage, leading to a range of health concerns. One way microplastics impact health is by causing oxidative stress, a process where cells are damaged due to an imbalance between antioxidants and reactive oxygen species. This stress can trigger inflammation, a common factor in many diseases, including heart disease. Microplastics can also act as carriers for other harmful substances. They can absorb toxic chemicals from the environment, such as heavy metals and persistent organic pollutants. When ingested, these substances are released into the body, compounding the risks posed by the microplastics themselves. Furthermore, microplastics have been shown to disrupt endocrine function, potentially interfering with hormones that regulate various bodily processes, including metabolism and cardiovascular health. This disruption could contribute to increased risks of conditions like hypertension, diabetes, and, ultimately, heart disease. Understanding these health risks is critical for developing effective strategies to reduce microplastic exposure and protect human health. Microplastics linked to heart disease is an emerging field of study that reveals potentially severe consequences for cardiovascular health. The exact mechanisms through which microplastics contribute to heart disease are complex, but researchers have identified several pathways that might explain the connection. First, microplastics can induce chronic inflammation in the body. When these particles enter the bloodstream or other tissues, the body's immune response can trigger inflammatory processes. Over time, chronic inflammation is a well-known risk factor for atherosclerosis, a condition where plaque builds up in arteries, narrowing them and increasing the risk of heart attacks and strokes. Second, microplastics can cause oxidative stress, a state where harmful reactive oxygen species, ROS, outnumber the body's antioxidants. This imbalance can lead to cellular damage and contribute to the development of cardiovascular diseases. Oxidative stress also plays a role in promoting inflammation, compounding the risks to heart health. Moreover, microplastics might affect lipid profiles in the body. Changes in cholesterol and other blood lipid levels are critical factors in heart disease risk. Preliminary studies suggest that microplastics could disrupt lipid metabolism, leading to unhealthy cholesterol levels and, consequently, a higher risk of heart disease. Finally, microplastics can transport toxic chemicals that they absorb from the environment. These chemicals, including heavy metals and persistent organic pollutants, can further damage cardiovascular tissues and exacerbate heart disease risks. Understanding these pathways underscores the importance of addressing microplastic contamination to protect heart health. It also highlights the need for continued research to explore the full extent of the impact and guide efforts to mitigate the risks associated with microplastics. Reducing exposure to microplastics in our diet is crucial for minimizing health risks, especially those associated with heart disease. Here are some practical tips to help you limit microplastic intake and reduce contamination in your food. Choose fresh, whole foods. Opt for fresh, whole foods whenever possible. Processed foods often come in plastic packaging, which can shed microplastics into the contents. By choosing whole fruits, vegetables, and grains, you can reduce your exposure to microplastic contamination. Avoid plastic packaging. When shopping, select products with minimal plastic packaging. Look for alternatives like glass, paper, or metal containers, which are less likely to release microplastics into your food. Carry reusable cloth or mesh bags for produce and other items. Filter your water. Bottled water is a significant source of microplastic contamination. Instead of buying bottled water, use a high-quality water filter at home to reduce microplastic content. Consider a reverse osmosis system or a carbon-based filter, both of which are effective at removing microplastics from tap water. Cook with care. Avoid heating food in plastic containers or using plastic utensils in high-temperature cooking. Heat can cause microplastics to break down, releasing them into food and drinks. Use glass, ceramic, or stainless steel for cooking and storage to reduce the risk of microplastic contamination. Support environmental efforts. Reducing microplastic pollution requires collective action. Support local and global initiatives that aim to decrease plastic waste and encourage recycling. Participate in beach cleanups, reduce single-use plastic, and advocate for policies that promote sustainability and plastic reduction. By taking these steps, you can lower your exposure to microplastics and contribute to broader efforts to combat plastic pollution. This not only benefits your health but also helps protect the environment and future generations from the risks associated with microplastics. Microplastics have infiltrated our food chain, posing significant risks to human health, particularly heart disease. The pathways through which these tiny particles enter our food are diverse, from seafood and water contamination to agricultural practices and food processing. Once inside the body, microplastics can trigger chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and disrupt lipid metabolism, contributing to a higher risk of cardiovascular diseases. To combat these risks, we must take action. Choose fresh, whole foods, avoid plastic packaging, and support environmental efforts to reduce plastic pollution. By taking these steps, you can lower your exposure to microplastics and help safeguard your heart health. Let's work together to create a healthier, more sustainable future.